July 9, 1946. Poznan, Poland. A warm summer morning. The kind of morning that feels ordinary, except it wasn't. 15,000 people packed into the ruins of the citadel. A fortress that had taken bombs and survived. What they came to witness was something that couldn't survive. A man. His reckoning. The car came through slow. The crowd didn't rush it. They just watched. Quiet. Like they were holding their breath. Then the door opened. He stepped out blindfolded. Dressed in a suit. Like he was headed somewhere important. He was Arthur Greiser. Gauleiter of the Reichsgau Warthland. The man who signed off on the murder of hundreds of thousands. Now standing on a gallows built specifically for him, hands bound behind his back. 2 guards at either side. There's something worth noticing here. He didn't beg. He didn't break down. He mumbled prayers, despite spending years dismantling the church. Despite having priests shot and clergy shipped to Dachau. At the very end, he reached for something he had spent years destroying. What does that tell you about a man? But before we uncover the rest of this story, drop a comment and share one forgotten fact about World War II that most people don't know. We're always looking to learn from you. To support the channel and help us grow our mission of uncovering these untold stories, please hit the like button and subscribe with the notification bell turned on. Sharing this video with a fellow history buff is the best way to help us keep this history alive. Arthur Karl Greiser was born in January 1897 in the German Empire. His early life gave no indication of what he'd become. He wasn't a fanatic from birth. He was shaped. World War I made the first cut. He volunteered for the Imperial German Navy. Served in coastal forts. Then the trenches of the Western Front as an observer. Then mine clearance, one of the most dangerous assignments a soldier could draw. Then the Naval Flying Corps, until he was shot down and wounded. By September 1919, he was classified 50% war disabled. Released. Decorated with the Iron Cross First Class. He survived all of it. The trenches. The mines. The aircraft going down. You don't walk away from all that without something shifting inside you. Some men came back quieter. Greiser came back angrier. After the war, he joined the Freikorps. The Treaty of Versailles had humiliated Germany, 100,000-man army cap, no air force, territory stripped away. Greiser didn't accept it. He found people who felt the same. He drifted through nationalist politics. A brief stop with the German Social Party. Then came the Nazis. The SS. A fast climb through the ranks. By the early 1930s, men like Hitler and Himmler were watching him and liking what they saw. The pattern here isn't uncommon. A capable, resentful veteran. A country in economic collapse. An ideology that offered both explanation and purpose. What made Greiser different wasn't that he joined, it's how far he was willing to go once he did. Greiser rose to become deputy president, then Senate president of the Free City of Danzig, a semi-autonomous territory the Nazis considered rightfully German. He made enemies fast. Polish diplomats. Church officials. Anyone who represented an order he despised. He sent insulting correspondence to Polish politicians. Created international incidents. He wasn't subtle, and he wasn't supposed to be. The Poles in Danzig didn't need to read the letters to understand. They felt it. Every policy, every restriction, every glare from a man who held real power and made no effort to hide his contempt. But Danzig also revealed something else about Greiser, his appetite for personal status. He cultivated relationships with the most powerful men in the Reich. Martin Bormann. Rudolf Hess. He understood early that proximity to power was protection. He worked those connections deliberately, methodically. Every dinner. Every dispatch. Every favor offered and received. That's what separated men like Greiser from the true ideological zealots. He wasn't just a believer. He was also a climber. And climbers are often more dangerous, because they'll do whatever the next rung requires. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, Greiser's moment arrived. He became chief of civil administration for Poznan, which was then incorporated into the Reich as the Reichsgau Warthland. He was named Gauleiter and Reich Defense Commissioner of the region. The land was wealthy, agricultural, dense with civilian population. Greiser absorbed that wealth into the Nazi hierarchy and treated the people living on it as an obstacle to be removed. What's often overlooked is just how much autonomous power a Gauleiter actually held. Greiser wasn't simply executing orders from Berlin. He was shaping policy on the ground, pushing for escalation, in some cases, demanding it. Greiser's administration ran on terror. Polish civilians were expelled from their land. Ethnic Germans were resettled in their place. Churches were stripped of funding. Priests were arrested. 1,700 Polish clergy were sent to Dachau alone. Think about what that means on the ground. Parish by parish, town by town. The people who had baptized children, buried the dead, married couples, hauled away. The communities they left behind didn't know where they went. Some never found out. In the summer of 1940, Greiser authorized the removal of 1,558 patients from mental hospitals in his region. They were taken to the Soldau concentration camp and gassed. This was among the earliest uses of mass gassing as a tool of extermination. He wasn't experimenting. He was demonstrating what was possible. These were patients. People who couldn't defend themselves, couldn't flee, couldn't understand what was happening to them. And they were gone before most of the outside world even knew the mechanism existed. He also argued directly with Hermann Göring about the pace of Jewish deportations. In his view, things weren't moving fast enough. In September 1941, Himmler informed him that 60,000 Czech and German Jews would be sent to the Lodz ghetto. Greiser's response was to ask if he could simply kill 100,000 in his territory instead. Let that settle for a moment. He wasn't waiting for orders. He was requesting permission to exceed them. That distinction matters. It collapses the argument that men like Greiser were passive instruments of a system. He was an engine inside that system, accelerating it. Between autumn 1941 and April 1942, gas vans operating in his region killed approximately 150,000 Jews. The killing site at Chelmno, known in German as Kulmhof, became one of the first dedicated extermination operations in occupied Poland. Greiser's territory, Greiser's signature. Civilians were publicly hanged to enforce compliance among the surviving population. The hangings weren't hidden. They were staged, meant to be seen. There's a quote that survived from people who knew him then. Powerfully built. Arrogant. People had to bow. Had to salute. The Poles he saw as slaves, good for nothing but work. He said it publicly. At a podium. Like it was a point of pride. And in a way, for him it was. Greiser operated in a world where that language earned applause. Where cruelty was career advancement. The tragedy isn't just what he did. It's that the structure around him rewarded every step of it. By January 1945, the Soviet advance was pushing hard toward the region. Greiser ordered the evacuation of Poznan, then left himself. Reported to Himmler aboard his private train. What he didn't expect was the knife in his back from Martin Bormann. Bormann, a man Greiser considered a close ally, told Hitler that Greiser had abandoned his post. Branded him a deserter. A traitor. The man who had overseen hundreds of thousands of deaths was being thrown under the wheels by his own side. There's a brutal irony in that. The regime Greiser had served so absolutely, discarded him the moment he became inconvenient. That's the internal logic of that world. Loyalty bought nothing. Every alliance was conditional. Every friendship, a transaction waiting to expire. He fled to Austria. Surrendered to American forces when the war ended. Was handed over to Poland, where the crimes had actually been committed. The trial opened in Poznan in June 1946. The city where he had ruled. Where people remembered exactly what his administration had looked like from the ground. He arrived in court composed. Almost detached. As if the proceedings were something happening around him rather than to him. Observers noted that he showed little visible remorse, and even less fear. At least at first. But the evidence didn't care about his composure. Document after document. Testimony after testimony. The names of the dead read into the record. The numbers. The methods. A courtroom full of survivors who had watched their families disappear into a system he ran. At trial, he offered the standard defense. Following orders. Superior authority. The chain of command. The Polish court rejected it entirely. The charges were extensive. Murder of civilians and prisoners of war, torture, cultural destruction, theft, the forced removal of children, massacres in the ghettos. The court worked through each category methodically. What emerged wasn't just a list of crimes, it was a portrait of a man who had treated an entire people as expendable material. The following orders, defense had already collapsed at Nuremberg. But Greiser pushed it anyway. And in doing so, he revealed something about how he still saw himself as a functionary. A middle manager of atrocity. Not the architect. Not responsible. The court disagreed. Completely. He was convicted. Sentenced to death by hanging. The morning of July 9, 1946. The gallows. The citadel. 15,000 witnesses. He stood there without expression. Mumbled those prayers. Didn't ask for forgiveness. Didn't perform defiance. Just stood there. Like he'd finally run out of moves. The executioner, dressed in black, secured the noose. Checked the mechanism. Pulled the lever. Arthur Greiser was dead within minutes. And then the executioner removed his white gloves and threw them away. A small act. But deliberate. A statement that even the tools used to kill this man deserved to be discarded. Greiser isn't as well known as Hoss or Göring. But he should be. Because he didn't wait to be ordered into evil. He ran toward it. He asked for more of it. That's the part history tends to quietly skip over.